He is a fake samurai.
He said, "You're a fake samurai."
He's talking too much. He don't know me. He will know me.
Aleksandar Rakic made his UFC debut in 2017. He started from the bottom like most UFC newcomers until his coming out party with his quick head kick KO against Jimmy Manoa. That win would propel Rakic to contender status. In his next fight, he'd lose a close and somewhat controversial split decision against Volkan Oezdemir. That loss would be a minor setback for Rakic, while Oezdemir would move on to face Jiri Prochazka in his UFC debut. Jiri already had a bit of an established career before joining the UFC, coming in as the rising light heavyweight champion. So unlike Rakic, he came in as an instant contender. Oezdemir was a good test to see where Jiri was at. The fight was competitive for as long as it lasted, but Prochazka passed that test by knocking Volkan out in the second round. Regardless of how you scored Oezdemir versus Rakic, Aleksandar didn't do to him what Jiri did. Aleksandar would go on to face Anthony Smith in a very disappointing fight. Rakic would indeed dominate Smith, but regardless of that, he could have easily won more impressively, plus shown a higher fight IQ. Rakic wrecked Smith with leg kicks, but instead of forcing him to stand up, he'd jump into his guard and do just enough to not get stood up. It was a frustrating fight to watch because Smith could barely walk. The chances of Smith knocking Rakic out were far less likely than Smith's chances of submitting him. The outcome would have most likely led to him winning by leg kick TKO, but instead Rakic decided to coast to a boring decision. Does he not know who his boss is, or what the fans like to see? If this fight would have been on Dana White's Contender Series, he wouldn't have gotten a contract. Anyone that says a win is a win is full of shit. Performances matter, and everyone knows this by now.
I like to dominate guys.
Seemingly unaware of what just happened, and extremely out of touch but very impressed of himself, Rakic falsely declared that he'd be next for the title shot despite being on a one-fight win streak.
Who do you want next?
You know what's next? The belt is next.
No, you moron.
Instead, Dana rewarded him with a fight against formerly fun but recently dull Thiago Santos. Another fight where Rakic would get the win, but now this one would make his last look like Shogun versus Henderson. Meanwhile, back in Funland, Jiri would defeat former title challenger Dominic Reyes in what would be an epic performance followed by the knockout of the year. It was that fight which solidified Jiri as the #1 contender. The only issue was that Jan versus Glover was taking place roughly 5 months later, so Jiri would have some downtime in between fights. Hearing the news of Jiri's title shot made Rakic's blood boil, causing him to trash talk one of the most humble fighters in the sport.
Jiri has 2 fights and an immediately title shot. He gets so much hype and push from the UFC like many other guys, you know. I have 7 fights. He has 2 fights and he get a push. This guy, he don't even know how to speak English right, proper. I don't know why, but his time will come and he will be forgotten like many other guys.
I've already explained why Jiri dove into the deep end for his UFC debut and how performances matter. Aleksandar was mostly a decision machine that had 2 stoppages in 7 fights. Hell, Rakic himself said this.
I think to fight for the title, I need a couple of more fights. I need to improve all my skills because to take a title fight, it's hard. You have to be prepared, not 100%, you have to be prepared 200%. And I'm 27 years old. I don't want to rush. I have plenty of time.
He also whined about this.
I don't know why he's waiting and why he's sitting around.
By this time, it was established that Jiri had already earned his title shot, so he shouldn't have said that he doesn't know why when everyone else did. His anger made him so jealous and irrational that he was becoming Jennifer Jason Leigh from Single White Female.
Someone who would kill to be her.
He didn't take the fight against me. He was willing to be the backup and to wait another 6-7 months. Man, come on. This guy, he fights once a year or what and get a title shot. I know from the UFC they like guys who are active, who wants to fight, you know, and not to sit around long.
You know what else the UFC doesn't like, Nancy? Boring crybabies who play it safe.
You piece of shit.
Some of you might say, I don't blame Rakic. He has a right to be mad. Actually, he doesn't, and here's why. After Jiri beat Oezdemir, the UFC tried matchmaking him up against Aleksandar, but Rakic rejected the fight.
I know people were saying about you fighting Aleksandar Rakic after your last win. Was there ever any serious talks about you fighting him?
We have offer for him, and then he
didn't want to make a fight.
I know you had been tied to a fight with Jiri Prochazka. I know there were some rumors about that. Was that ever offered to you? Was there ever talks of you fighting him at all?
Yeah, they offered me Yuri, but I said no.
Rakic had said that he wanted to face someone higher ranked than Prochazka, yet Jiri just defeated the guy who got a win over Aleksandar. Rejecting him made no sense because Jiri was higher on the totem pole. Flash forward a couple fights later and Rakic is claiming that Jiri is the one ducking him after he earned his title shot. You can't pull out the scared card when you ducked him first. You reap what you sow. On top of that, if you're Dana, why wouldn't you want Jiri to fight for a title over Rakic? A guy who always delivers versus one who rarely does. The choice was even more justified when Jiri beat Glover in one of the best fights of all time. Rakic and Jiri would both get injured in 2022. Jiri vacated the belt but would immediately get a title shot upon his return. Yuri's location during his hiatus was unknown, but speculation suggests that he was recovering in a Shaolin temple on top of a mountain. While Rakic kept his thumbs in shape occupying Twitter, winning 2022's Player Hater of the Year. Yuri's still living in that rent-free dojo in Rakic's head. Prochazka would come back to face Alex Pereira for the vacant light heavyweight title in late 2023. Unfortunately for Jiri, he would lose by a controversial TKO stoppage after a gutsy performance. Around this time, Rakic would also return from his injury. He was scheduled to rematch Jan Blachowicz, but this time Jan pulled out with an injury. Of course, Rakic wasn't buying it.
I asking myself why he's canceling the fight with me twice, because in the first fight he canceled the fight, then 6 weeks later we fought, now he canceled again. He never canceled the fight before. He fought against Ankalaev, Pereira, Glover. He never talked about that his shoulders were very bad, and now he decided to make surgery on the shoulders.
I get a kick out of dopey fighters that act like they're the only ones that ever get a real injury, but whenever it happens to someone else, it's because they're scared.
Everybody's scared.
It's the lowest common denominator for trash talk. Do better, Knight Rider eyes. With Jiri losing the title and Rakic losing an opponent, their paths would finally cross.
I see also many holes in his game.
I saw also a lot of holes. I also saw some big holes. I see some holes.
We are just figuring out who the king of Europe is.
Let's find out who the king of Europe is.
Alexander was in here earlier and he said this is a fight for the king of Europe.
I'm not looking to be the king of the Europe. I'm looking to be the king of the world.
He is a fake samurai.
You cannot become a samurai after just reading a book.
He said he doesn't consider you a real samurai, you're a fake samurai. You can't be a real samurai just because your coach gave you a book to read.
He's talking too much. He don't know me. He will know me in the cage.
Rakic really took Jiri's samurai philosophies quite literally.
I would not say that his chin is weak, but he feels the punches really different than, for example, me.
Oh, really, dude?
I am samurai.
After years of sexual tension, Rakic finally faced his hero. Sadly for him, things did not go according to plan. Aleksandar started off landing some good leg kicks, but Jiri persevered, showing his samurai spirit, breaking Rakic in the second round. Be careful what you wish for, and get that Ready for War tattoo removed while you're at it. You ain't that guy, but Jiri is.